So how did you make the link between this and violence, and social violence?
Well, the link with violence is pretty obvious if you think of the competition. If two people influence each other and have the same desire, they will normally desire the same. They will, if the object they desire is a single one, is one which exists only in one copy, one individual, they will fight for it. Mimetic desire is fundamentally conflictual. If you want a bottle of wine, it's not a big problem because someone else may be inspired by your desire to have a bottle of wine, but he can buy one. But if you desire a woman, it will be that woman and nobody else.
So you've extrapolated from this to a social theory of warfare and...
Warfare, of conflict being fundamental to human society. Competitive conflict.
And yet now you've seen, I guess this is part of the Clausewitz phase of your work, that we're coming to the era of the end of war.
Yeah, but maybe first, the end of war. Mm-hmm. War is fundamental to, or has played an enormous role in history, and well, it's a complicated story because so conflict is fundamental to society. Societies have rules to start with, but the type of conflict I'm talking about tends to dissolve these rules, you know.
Can you give an example of a conflict that dissolves rules? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's well, societies have rules, you know, and they have rules about fighting. So rules tend to disappear. When people fight more and more, they disregard the rules. They have relationships that become very simple and very symmetrical. And the more they fight, the more energy on both sides. This is a great difference with Freud in the mimetic theory. You know, Freud thought that in human relations there was a certain quantity of energy, and if it went one way, it disappeared the other way, or it went down, or, you know, it was a... But the mimetic theory observes something very obvious, is that people can have a very nondescript relationship, indifferent and so forth. And if they become interested in each other positively or negatively, the level of energy will increase on both sides. And when you have a rivalry, the very definition, rivalry means two people on the edge of a river, you know, originally, and neighbors of different countries which may start fighting because of various reasons. But the more you fight, the more you have a rise to the extremes on both sides. The intensity goes up all the time with the fight, just as in a boxing match, you know, or something of the sort, which is something that Freud missed completely. So human fighting tends to become more and more dangerous for the human organization itself, the rules of a society. The more two communities fight with each other, the more threatened their own organization is, you know. Like it's true in all periods, but it takes different form at different times. At the end of the First World War, the German emperor was down. In Russia, they had the Soviet Revolution, which was a serious change. They had fewer change in the victorious societies, but they still had quite a bit, because France was in a crisis during the whole period between the two wars. So this is what it means, the ends of rules, which is the general tendency of societies as they act with each other, as they try to increase each other at each other's expense, and conflictual relationships tend to run to chaos.
So,
Be disorganized, a certain form of wild mimesis takes over. And this wild mimesis makes people fight more and more, but it also tends, at a certain level, to... There is a tipping point, where people will begin to imitate their hostility to someone. First, they have their own enemies, and they don't confuse them with the enemy of the next fellow. But this tendency to confuse your own enemy with the enemy of the next fellow is visible even in daily life. For instance, when you get to the office in the morning, if one of your fellow workers whom you know well, in psychology, is very excited on that day about politics, you immediately wonder if he hasn't had a fight with his wife in the morning or something of the sort. There is a tendency for hostility to be displaced. This displacement is very important in culture because it makes it possible at certain points, which are for everybody to focus on the same individual, which is a mystery of the scapegoat,